And we have around us so many protective layers to keep grace out. But
Right.
sometimes we need our own failure to break open.
One of the questions we got from a viewer, Peggy, she said, I've had a few people ask about Nathaniel under the tree, grabbing his collar and then pouring the ashes over his head. Can that be elaborated on as to the Jewish custom behind it? So talk about that a little bit. Is we don't have him ripping his clothes totally. We just have him kind of grabbing them and putting the ashes of his failed dreams on. What's the tradition there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if a person is a state of mourning, there was this idea, or repentance, there's this idea of donning sackcloth and ashes. So you can kind of see that sense of, mourning or sorrow, and obviously this case for what had happened with the building falling down and the loss of
Well,
life.
he says to the bartender, when the bartender says, did someone die? And he says, yes. So traditionally, would you pour ashes on when someone hasn't died?
No. I mean, not that I'm aware of, but I think you could more portray it as him in a state of repentance, right? Of grief and sorrow and anguish over what it is that had happened, that there's been a loss of life, someone because of his failure.
Right.
The modern English phrase is, he hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
They would use dust, not rocks, as an expression of reaching the bottom, from which either I resurrect, come back to life somehow, or I am done. And he's at rock bottom, no place to look but up.
Yeah, I like that theme a lot too. And it's touching on our earlier issue of the problem of evil. I mean, that failure is often a way in. Failure is often when grace breaks through. And we have around us so many protective layers to keep grace out. But sometimes we need our own failure to break open. And that's how I read him there beautifully. He never abandons God. He's in touch deeply with God, but it's his own failure that's allowing God's grace to get in. So I love that.
Yeah.
I think it's a good point, because this idea of man is created from the dust.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of idea of a principle of creation that you can't, if God created the world out of nothing, you can't become something until you become nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So this kind of principle underlying here.
Well, and his storyline was loosely based on my own, which is The Chosen was actually birthed out of failure. I mean, my last feature film had completely bombed. I didn't know if I had a future. I was frustrated and confused, and I was asking God, like, this whole movie that I just did was for you. Like, it was a faith-based movie. It was very gospel-centric, and you opened up a lot of doors to get me there, and now it's failed, and now I don't even have a future as a filmmaker. What the heck? I mean, where are you in this?
Yeah.
And it was out of that I got to the point where I was genuinely willing to never make another movie again if that's what God wanted. And I think that's when God said, all right, now you're ready for The Chosen. And that's for us, when in that episode when Jesus says to Nathaniel, you did want to build synagogues. You wanted to bring people to prayer, bring people to worship. And then at the end of the episode, he says, can you start tomorrow? It's just going to look a lot different than what Nathaniel was doing.
He wanted to help build something that would cause prayer and songs, something to bring souls closer to God, yes? Can you start tomorrow?
But yeah, that whole sackcloth and ashes idea for us in that scene was Nathaniel was essentially dying of his old self, and he was emptying himself. He was repenting. But in the expression of it, he was saying, "Do you see me?" He was actually questioning whether God was truly present with him in that moment, which is something I think we've all faced at one point in our lives.
Well, yeah, precisely. And maybe this is why the Gospel of John, chapter 1, where this story occurs, doesn't bother telling us exactly Nathaniel's backstory. We don't know exactly what was the conversation under the fig tree, but all the more that all of us can relate to it, because we all have had those fig tree moments. We've all had those sort of rock bottom failure experiences where we have to look upward. And the architect option is a plausible first century experience, but whatever it was for him, it's open for all of us to have this same experience.
Right. We had a lot of people, a lot of viewers who haven't experienced the specific architect failure, but a lot of them were truly moved by the notion of something happened in my life that brought me down. I was confused, I was questioning, and seeing that God saw me in that moment was was
It
significant.
might have been in season 2 what moved me the most was that scene, because the acting is so fine. The acting of, I don't know the actor's name, but
His name is
under-
Austin, yeah, he plays Nathaniel.
yeah, it was so fine. But then also Jesus' line to him, and I saw you under the fig tree, and I did not turn my face from you. The revelation of his divinity there very clearly, and then the way it got into the soul of Nathaniel. And it was that moment of the failure that broke it open so that the grace could get in.
Right.
I found that maybe the most moving in all of season 2.